Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just got into some of the questions that we have going into week 7 and kind of going into the rest of the year, and one of the bigger ones is, are we just reliving 2007? Not with the same faces obviously, but with the same chaos. So we'll break it all down throughout the rest of the year, but let's get into this top 12 because I don't love it, guys. I'll be totally honest with you. This past weekend made me all types of confused. But at the end of the day, I do have 12 teams. I thought about just putting the 12 undefeated teams on this list, but ended up giving you the list that as I see it, and it was really tough. So spare me just a little bit here. But Iowa State, I have at 12. I am very sick of not giving Iowa State the love that they deserve. They are number 11 in the AP, so very, very happy about that. This team's just playing really great football. They're winning football games, and it's not just that they're winning. They're winning in a number of different ways. They beat Iowa in a really, really gross defensive battle. They absolutely blew out Baylor this past weekend. This is a really dangerous team, and one of those teams that in a conference that is going absolutely off the walls, they're playing just consistent, really good football. So I'm going to reward that. I think they're the best team in the Big 12 right now, and frankly, I look at the rest of their season. If they play that type of football every single week, they have an ability to run the table. So it's going to be incredible to watch this team. I think Rocco Beck continues to make steps forward and is so huge for this team. They're kind of that 2020 Iowa State team, at least from vibes. I think they have a couple more playmakers than that 2020 team did. But at the end of the day, they're as dangerous as can be. Cannot wait to see what they can do the rest of the season. They are one of those teams that I had in the Big 12 title going into the season and feel really good about that right about now. A&M, I got to put at 11, and I think it's one of those things that A&M probably got the biggest win of the weekend, non-upset of course, but blowing out Missouri was absolutely huge. They put themselves in the CFP conversation, gave themselves a shot to make some noise in this league going forward, and when you talk about the biggest thing for this team, they have obviously South Carolina down the road. Got to make sure one of these teams doesn't just jump up on you and get a loss, because then you're facing a point where maybe you lose to LSU, maybe you lose to Texas, and then at the end of the season, you're 9-3 and barely missing out on the playoffs. So have to make sure you take care of business, but you take care of Connor Wegman, you keep him upright, you're probably going to take care of business. They only allowed one sack on Saturday, and frankly, if they keep him upright, if they let him kind of digest the field and make the throw that he is confident making, this kid is really, really good. And he's one of those guys that absolutely can lead a playoff team. So cannot wait to see what they can do the rest of the season. And frankly, if Connor Wegman is upright, then they can do a whole lot of stuff the rest of the season. And then we got to talk about Tennessee. I didn't want to drop them out too far because when I look at that game, I understand there were some things that are wrong, and I understand they got to figure out some things on offense, particularly what are you doing with Nico? Do you fully trust him to run this offense, or is he going to be more of a supplemental piece? I think they can probably get it done with both. Need Nico probably in those big time games, but at the end of the day, I don't think this is a bad team now. I don't think they changed too much on Saturday. I think they have every ability to move forward. I know that defense is going to be a problem and going to cause issues for pretty much any offense they face, and then I know that offense is scary. So the reality is I think there's a number of openings here to say, Tennessee has fallen off and they're going to be a terrible team going forward, and I kind of flirted with that. I'll be totally honest with you guys. But at the end of the day, I do think there's ability on this team. I think they'll be able to move forward. And as long as they, are able to get a couple of big-time wins the rest of the season, they very much could be in that CFP conversation or be firmly in the CFP. And then we got to talk about Clemson. I think this is one of those teams that everyone just continues to bury for losing to Georgia. And I understand it. Georgia's not playing elite football by any means right now. But you're playing in Atlanta the first week of the season against Kirby Smart defense. You're not going to play great football. I'll just be totally honest with you guys. I don't know if there's an offense that really played incredible football against a Georgia team that's had a number of weeks to prepare. So it's going to be awesome to watch. I guess Alabama did, to be totally fair. But at the end of the day, I do think Clemson probably shouldn't get, torn down that aggressively. Cade Klubnik's development has been huge for this team. I think it's a total difference maker from even when he looked in week 1 to where he looks right now. Obviously has not played that elite defense again, and we'll see what happens down the road when they play some of those elite teams. But frankly, I don't see a team on their schedule going forward that they can't beat. I don't see a team on their schedule that I probably wouldn't pick them again. So we'll see what happens with this team. I think they're so dangerous going forward and could be a team to watch. No two ways about that, and could run away with the ACC at the end of the day. I did drop Georgia at 8. I don't know what's going on over there. I'll be totally honest with you. They responded with a win. They got an 18-point win against Auburn. I fully understand that. Not trying to tear them down for getting a win, especially on this past weekend, but it's not the team that I expected by any means. I think you get a little bit worried about this team's ability to win those Texas, Ole Miss, all those big Tennessee coming down the road. You got to make sure you get more from your offensive line. This offensive line is not near where they need to be if they're going to win the title, if they're going to win an SEC title, much less. And I think you have Carson Beck, who is so dangerous. He is such a good quarterback when you keep him upright. If you move him off his spot, if you make him think a little bit too much, it's going to be really tough. And they made him move off his spot a number of times in the last 2 weeks. They have to clean that up. There's no two ways about that. And if they don't, then it's going to be a problem because they can't even run the ball. If they can't run the ball, then this Georgia team is pretty much nothing to be worried about, at least offensively. So they have a number of things to figure out. I still think this is a very capable team. I still think Carson Beck is a really elite quarterback. You just have to fix up a couple of things, particularly that offensive line, and then maybe you move forward and be a devastating team the rest of the way. But right now, just not really the Georgia team that I expected to see. Alabama does drop a little bit here, but I was not comfortable dropping them out of the top 12. I'll be totally honest with you guys. I think Saturday was bad. There's no two ways about that. And this defense, they got things to figure out. There's no doubt about that. But I think when you look at this team right now, there's still a lot to like. There's still a lot of things that they can do well. And frankly, they have guys on that back end that maybe you just need a couple of picks per game. And maybe that's a lot to ask. But at the end of the day, if that's the way you're going forward, then you go forward that way and you try to figure out where you're going from there. I think it's still a dangerous team. They have to be able to, get pressure on the quarterback on the defensive side if they're going to be able to win these games, because that's really their big time chip. Being able to get blitzes, being able to heat people up and make life tough for them is exactly the way they go about business. So very much need to figure some things out. I think when you lose, at least there's a reality where they lose at least 3 games this year. Frankly, if the game plan is score 45 points and then hope that the other team doesn't, you're going to lose at least 3 games, maybe even more than that. And then people are going to look up at the end of the year, and Kalen DeBoer is going to have a lot of answering to do. Then you got Ole Miss at 6. They responded. I think that's the biggest thing here. This is a team that I kind of expected to see the whole season on Saturday. Now, I think the offense still has some things to figure out. I still think they need a little bit more from the other receivers not named Trey Harris. I still think they need a little bit more aggressive of a run game. I still think the O-line needs to play a little bit better going forward. All that being said, they executed what was in front of them, and that was kind of the biggest thing for this game. I just wanted to see the Ole Miss that I expected to see against Kentucky, that I expected to see the rest of the year, and I got that. So I'm not necessarily super worried about this team now. The LSU game will tell me just about everything I need to know about this Ole Miss team. Are they real? Are they not? Is this defense have the capability to win a big-time game? Does it not? We'll find out on Saturday. So this could, totally change up on Saturday. No two ways about that. But right now, they responded in a week where a lot of people didn't. So I'm going to give them props for that. I got Miami at 5. Frankly, there's a team that I'm a little bit worried about going forward. I think they're, plenty of ability to make the ACC title, get to the playoff, but can they do it smoothly? Can they do it without these 25-point comebacks, without these crazy endings that get everyone mad on Twitter because of the refs? Can they just, win the game in front of them, move forward with a 10, 20-point win and not have to worry about it? Will be something that is going to be huge for them going forward, because you need to take care of these games. You can't have, huge games in week 7 and, going 2 overtimes deep and playing incredible amounts of snaps and then wake up the next day and have to play, a huge, or not the next day, but play the next week a huge game again. So it's one of those things that Miami's playing with a little bit of fire. No two ways about that. And they could very well get burned in a conference that is just all over the place right about now. But as of right now, I have no reason to believe this is not the best team in the ACC. I have no reason to believe they can't make a run at the CFP. Little bit worried about their title hopes as of right now, but maybe all that changes very quickly. They have Louisville in a couple of weeks. They do get a bye, which they very much needed at this very moment. But then you get Louisville coming out of it. I think if they roll in that one, then a lot of things become a little bit more comfortable for Miami. But say they do the same exact thing, then we're having a very interesting conversation about the Hurricanes. I do have Penn State at 4. I think this team is just executing. When you talk about all the different things that happened across the country, I feel like you got to reward someone for just handling business, doing what they had to do. And frankly, I think in that UCLA game, that was like 70% of what Penn State is. Frankly, I think there were a number of things that they just have to do better going forward. No two ways about that. But didn't have Nicholas Singleton, didn't necessarily pass the ball downfield that aggressively. I just think a lot of things are going to change this upcoming weekend. I think they'll roll out a lot of their ability. I think a lot of the different things that we haven't seen the first couple of weeks from Penn State will come out this weekend. And then if they take care of business, they're absolutely a top 3 team this time next week. And then maybe if Texas loses, they're a top 2 team. And then that Ohio State, Penn State game, or maybe Oregon's that number 1 team. But regardless, this team just has to keep taking care of business, get to that Ohio State game undefeated, and then see what happens. But you got a huge one this weekend. If they lose that one, then things get a little bit sketchy. No two ways about that for Penn State. Then we got Oregon at 3. I think this is a team that we did so much, burying them early on in the season, saying they're not real title contenders, saying they don't have the ability that we expected. And then they kind of turned it on. They've been only getting better the rest of the way. Beat a Michigan State team that is not necessarily great by any means, but whenever you play them, you're going to have a couple of challenges with Aiden Childs at quarterback. They were able to handle that. I think this is a really, really dangerous team. This weekend they can become the team. I think if they beat Ohio State not on the road, if they beat Ohio State at home, they are going to be the team to beat in college football. I think Texas will have plenty to say about that this upcoming weekend, but the reality is you beat Ohio State, you are absolutely the team that everyone's pointing to possibly be the favorite going forward. A huge test, no two ways about that, and we'll see how they respond, but as of right now, I think Oregon's playing as good a football as really anyone in the country. I do have Texas at 2. I think this is a really good team, really calm, really beautiful bye week, to be totally honest, for the Texas Longhorns, and they have every ability to win the title. There's no two ways about that. The next 2 games will probably tell us how real they are. When you play an OU team that absolutely wants to take you off the mountaintop and absolutely wants to ruin all your fun, and then you play Georgia at home, it's going to be incredible to watch that. And if they go 2-0 in those games, they will be the team that's the favorite to win the title. I feel pretty confident saying that. So it's going to be incredible to watch. I do have my slight worries. I think Quinn Ewers' health is going to be a thing you have to watch the rest of the season. Feel pretty good that he's going to be okay. I think that was more of a freak injury than anything else, but we'll see what happens the rest of the way. And then not really that elite top flight talent at defensive tackle. I think they have a lot of guys that are going to play good football for them. So not necessarily super worried about that, but when you face, Georgia or you face an Ohio State down the road possibly, maybe it's a little bit more worrisome than it seems right now. So we'll figure out the rest of the way what Texas is really about. I think they're a really good team. I think there's a couple of worries that I have that could be totally subsided the next couple of weeks. So we'll figure out what happens the rest of the way. I have Ohio State number 1. This team is playing just outright elite football. I understand we can talk about the opponents all day, but watch those games for a second. It is downright insane how good this defense is, how dangerous this offense is. And although Will Howard makes that one big-time mistake pretty much every weekend, if you have the ability to make a number of other really good plays and you have Jeremiah Smith throwing the ball to, you'll be more than fine. This defense is one of the best, maybe the best in the country, although this weekend will likely tell us that tale, but they have playmakers just all over the field. They're deeper than really anyone in the country, probably beating out Texas by a hair, but this is a crazy team. I think when I looked at this team in the preseason, it was really hard to find a hole, and the first couple of weeks, it's very, very hard to find a hole. So we'll figure out what the rest of the way holds. Obviously, this weekend we'll do a ton for Ohio State one way or the other, so we'll figure out where we stand at the end of the week. But, man, it was absolutely crazy, and I think this is one of those teams that is just going to continue to prove themselves the rest of the year. Crazy week and a crazy list that I had for you, but the reality is anyone putting together a top 12 list right about now is grasping at straws just a little bit. I thought about just putting the 12 undefeated teams there and just calling it a day, but at the end of the day, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of something to honestly get a little bit mad about. Let's be totally honest. But it's going to be incredible to watch this unfold. Frankly, that could switch up a number of ways after this weekend as it did this week. So we'll break it all down when it does. But that'll do it for this edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It does make a huge difference for us. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all the social pages for all the content and updates you could possibly need. We have really incredible people doing awesome work across every single sport you can want. So anything in the world of sports you need, come on over to GSMC and we have you totally covered. But thank you once again for listening, and I will see you guys tomorrow.